Welcome everyone to this hopefully more amazing live stream. Still a little bit of a cold here from Canada, probably Niagara Falls, but that's what you get from traveling the world unnecessarily. Also, I guess anyway. Today's topic is unfortunately again Rust and cargo. Just a short, spreading the word, not world, but probably both, spreading the word to the world. Series Y, I made already probably 2 or so videos about the Rust and cargo situation, and it's not totally super amazing. Rust, of course, is a more modern, more type-safe language. Here, mostly invented at Mozilla for Firefox for their new web renderer, and so far so good. Supports this amazing stuff, but I wish it would just integrate better or at all into the open source Linux landscape, because the problem is, you can watch my previous videos, that this is a very non-standard install procedure, not configure make install or Ninja, or what was the other, Ninja and Mensen or stuff. So normally I would expect something like GCC or LLVM to configure make install, but that is not really what is happening in the Rust world. So as you see, 67 here, Firefox should be the latest. Even for this I had to patch Firefox because I couldn't get cargo to compile. So much to 2-decade veteran Linux developer can't even get cargo compiled in 2019, but the stuff is amazing. Why do I have Phoronix open here? Yeah, because in all the sites like Phoronix and Reddit, people always tell me, I'm just super too stupid, probably worth anything, should go right here. Rust is whatsoever on the Simpsons board there. And yeah, so I only commented here, upgraded Rust, can't compile cargo, damn it. And I seriously meant it, because this stuff really doesn't compile. I can even show it to you here in real life. So my, to make this here slightly optimized. So the one thing is, of course, cargo, they want this remote code execution, which is already, what have I done now to the, there it is still. They, of course, promoted this remote code execution, which I mentioned this not only once, but in last week's, I also need to stop my video, last week's IT news, that also someone from Dragonfly pointed this out. And what is remote code execution? When we go here to Rust lang, they want that we pipe here their installer into bash, which I completely don't like. Not only do you not even review, so for a classic configure make install, you at least unpack it and take a little bit look, and you see what's going on with. Even if you trust them a little bit, you just execute random stuff. It could also be truncated. Web connection dies somewhere. It could also be man in the middle, even with HTTPS, your certificate from your local Wi-Fi router, whatever, if you communicate with people in security circles and such. And how does it look? It looks like this: curl https sh rust up.rs -s capital S f pipe sh, which is of course something. I mean, we talk about security vulnerabilities and remote code execution, and then we have people promoting this. But even if this would work, so the next problem is this always, even if you do it manually, which I of course do, this is always loading a precompiled compiler. I'm of course super lucky that this even works on T2. This is the next thing. Then it might only work on supported distributions, not necessarily on T2 or whatever unsuccessful one-man distribution. And I'm lucky that this precompiled binary compiler, and I also understand there is an option to build with your local compiler, just that it usually doesn't work for me, which is probably also why they have this precompiled binary compiler here. So there is an option here, like enable local Rust. I think it might be. The problem is also, you see, this is such esoteric. Also, by the way, to build this, right? You build this with xpi build and xpi install. Like seriously, I mean, could they not at least call this mach or build, or I don't know, but not x, y, z or abc? But anyway, just a small nitpicking The next problem is that compiling Rust really takes forever. I would not say something if this compiles in 10 minutes, and in my opinion there is not really a reason why this should not compile in 10 minutes, because this is just a compiler, right, like GCC, and GCC has even C, C++, Java, Objective-C, Go and whatnot, and multilib for 32-bit, and Rust should be so much smaller yet and compiles in 1 hour here on a aging Core i7, or even streaming, at least I hope we do. Anyway, so the log you will see, I only summarize this here, Rust, C, and yeah, you see also the stuff here is this downloading, this precompiled stuff. You see this is Rust standard, something unknown. This also means we probably just can't bootstrap it here on an SG Octane or Spark, and maybe there exists something, but does it work on? In general, I don't want this precompiled stuff. And then just to properly document this here once and for all, and such that all those micro dependencies, right? So this comes, and this is also the problem in T2 or Debian Gentoo. We would normally want to package this like in packages like Rust Zin and Rust libc or something. I also don't quite understand why does this need 150 micro packages here, micro dependencies, compiling all this stuff, and then here bootstrapping the compiler finally, eventually. What is this even? Wrapper cc. Wait a second, why does this look like, probably only looks like GCC, but isn't GCC. So apparently here is Rust. I only wonder, so you can maybe target then all of these compilers, maybe according to this, so CMake. I sure hope this is, I mean, the problem is, you see, you don't even directly see, or is it LLVM? Don't tell me this is, wait a second, this is really compiling LLVM. This is hilarious. It also explains, I mean, seriously, okay, so next, you see, I spent already multiple afternoons investigating this Rust stuff, and I did not ask to waste my time investigating here this compiler stuff in devs. I would also have better things to do with my time instead of packaging here a new compiler infrastructure each and every year. So this also explains why this takes forever, bootstrapping their snowflakely special blessed flavor of LLVM. Thank you for that. Not that I have already LLVM for Clang and Mesa here. Okay, then this explains that. I would not want this, and this is also the problem with this Rust up crap here, that it's just doing something that I want in T2, for those who don't know, is a source distribution similar to Gentoo, more focused on cross-compiling embedded stuff. The Debian people call it an unsuccessful one-man distribution, which may or may not be correct. And whatever the case might be, we just want a Rust package of the Rust compiler. And by the way, in general, I find the concept of Rust quite compelling. And I would be totally okay and amazing with it. Just why does this packaging need to be such a clusterfuck? Seriously. Why can this not be like GCC or Clang, where you configure, make, install, and each time I don't even want, you have seen here this precompiled binary download thing. I don't even want this. And I also don't understand why can this Rust people not develop it so that you can, at least with the last handful of Rust versions, compile, bootstrap your latest Rust version, because I had Rust 1.30 installed here. And the other day for Firefox, I only wanted to install Rust 1.32. In the meantime, I have, by the way, 1.35 or something, because of course T2 is usually state-of-the-art, bleeding edge and everything like this. Yeah, okay, I didn't even look that precisely yesterday with my honey and citrus hot water stuff for my cold here. Then I only realized this compiles forever. And of course, this is also recompiling this here like once and then bootstrapping again or something. And yeah, so most of the time spent on LLVM, which I would not even wanted to. And you see how long this stuff is running here. And then even then, after all of this stuff, then it is compiling all those micro dependencies again. And my criticism with this, first of all, I find this really unhandy here. So what is it? This is like libraries You see here just like somehow some library names already, what is void? This sounds already so silly. I wonder if this is just some null pointer, null nil zero kind of value. It would not surprise me, but maybe it isn't. Also wonder config interface, does it have something to do with network interfaces? I don't know. UTF-8, I really don't understand why could they not package their library stuff so that they don't have like 150. I'm not making this up, these are like 150. I counted this once. Maybe we can take a look later how many this really are. But why do they also, why can they not have like something like an STL, this C++ standard template library? Why can there not be some standard Rust runtime with like the 20, 50 most important stuff like UTF-8? And as such, it's by the way, not saying that I just say all of this shit is bullshit. I have here some reasons, because this really is completely uncomfortable stuff to work with, long compiling. It's working against the distribution, so these are all basically all packages, extremely micro packages, sometimes probably just like a header, you know, this header only libraries in the C and C++ landscape. And so basically like regular expression like PCRE or something. And yeah, and does it really need to be like this many micro dependencies? Can there not be some standard Rust runtime with this? I would not say anything. Why can it not be like Rust? You have a Rust package. I mean, and then the next problem is also Cargo, right? Cargo is their package manager, which I also don't want. The Rust people say it's amazing, but you know what? No matter how amazing it is, I don't want it on my Linux. I have my T2 package manager, the Debian people have their apt and whatever. And basically this is always working against and not in tandem with your, not in tandem and in sync with your distribution. And I call this here out so specifically because when I'm fighting here windmills on Phoronix and Reddit, in the meantime, I'm not even motivated to answer anymore. I have the feeling I talk there with walls or something, and it's not getting anywhere. And this will probably most likely be one of the last Rust videos. You don't need to think that I will continue like other YouTuber reiterating the same stuff each and every day, like Louis Rossmann or so. I will not make here daily Rust crap shout out. So to summarize, Rust would be amazing as language if the whole package ecosystem would not be such a clusterfuck. Sorry for my words here. And then also those micro packages. The Rust people are somehow totally in love or in favor, impressed or find it outstanding. I really don't understand why. And yeah, as Ash says there in the audience, this, as I said, there should be some standard library Rust runtime. And by the way, you see this is also so silly. I've seen this so often. I'm not making this shit up. This is my live log from last night, Rust 1.35. Why is this even error chain? Why is this even compiling it twice for, I don't know, one of those micro dependencies requires version 12 and the other version 11? I mean, seriously, you can, and I've seen this more than once here, by the way. And this is really silly. And yeah, so all of this, you see the list is going on here and on and on and on. And yeah, so I also, on the plus side, each of those times, like, I avoid updating Rust, right? Because each time I update Rust, I spend here hours of trying to compile this piece of crap. And I have really better things to do. I have vintage graphics to finish, a microkernel, my commercial software. I cannot babysit each and everyone's package manager. And now the problem is, Rust usually, well, with this binary only bootstrapping stuff, eventually it compiles, although it takes an hour. On an aging Core i7, on a AMD Ryzen it may take half an hour, but this is still half an hour wasted that I wait here and watch the stuff to compile. And then is Cargo. Cargo is the package managing stuff similar to make and package config integrated stuff. And this doesn't build for me. And I think I remember when I last updated Rust, and I also don't understand why does Firefox need Cargo? Why can the Firefox people not build their Firefox web renderer so that they don't need any of this bloody micro packages? This would also already avoid most of the problem, because mostly I want Rust only, well, I don't want Rust. Although, again, the language would be quite good if the ecosystem would not be such a piece of piling garbage. But if I already don't want it and need it for Firefox, then why does Firefox web renderer come with everything, their bit field binding and A to D or whatever, in Firefox and not require all of the micro packages? Because Firefox requires already 50 of these bloody micro dependencies, is why you need cargo for this bloody stuff. And I don't understand. I seriously, zero, I spent 1 hour yesterday trying to get this bloody cargo to build, and I couldn't. And there you see, of course, we will go over, just for the fun and have some good eye rolling here, go over the Phoronix comments just for the fun of it. But how can it be? I do open source Linux since 1998. After 2 decades of calling myself probably veteran open source something, senior developer something, I can't get this bloody cargo to build. And I remember briefly that probably in January I also had some issue with it, and probably in January I ended up downloading there you see, even I end up downloading the binary only pre-built cargo stuff because I can't get it to build. I mean, seriously, what is wrong with them? And here you see the error is, and this is all cargo versions I tried, because usually I don't update from the last version I have. This is also a little bit strange. The cargo version is 0.30 something, should probably be visible here somewhere in the log. Here 0, but it advertises as the version number, it advertises cargo 1.30 something. I also don't understand why is there a mismatch of this version numbering, but probably there are totally amazing reasons for that, certainly scientific, totally researched. Probably PhD papers have been written about this. And yeah, so I had cargo 0.30 or something, or 0.31, and usually I don't upgrade to the very latest versions because this usually causes even more conflict. So because I'm not the most stupid already, I only try to update like 1 or 2 version numbers in the hope that this more likely compiles, but it didn't. And then I tried the next and the next, and none of them. So all of them, all of the cargo versions between 0.31 or what I had to the latest, which I think this probably right now is probably, hello, wait a minute. This probably is the latest at 0.36, I guess, from the day before yesterday or something. All of the cargo versions fail with error, unable to get package from source caused by failed to pass manifest at opt rust registry source github something rust cd mango and so on. Cargo toml caused by a feature rename dependency is required. Consider adding cargo features rename dependency. So I googled this, I don't find so much to that. I tried, I mean, they give here some answer. I tried to add this bloody cargo features rename dependency to a couple of this bloody toml or so manifests. It didn't help a shit. I added it all over, the error message didn't change. I have no idea where this needs to go. I also have no idea why can this not just compile. I don't know. This is also why I'm getting really frustrated. The build time of Firefox, I said this already in the other long videos and live streams. This is completely unreasonable that on halfway decent machines from Core i7 from yesteryear, or even AMD Ryzen, doesn't even matter so much. Even if I take a mid-range Core AMD Ryzen, it only halves the build time in half or something. But I mean, seriously, what is wrong with those guys? And you see, the build system is so amazing that it doesn't even work. And probably I don't know what's wrong with this bloody shit now. And probably I have to end up taking the binary only release. And is this a goal of open source? The destiny of open source? This is hyper complex crap of 2019 doesn't even build anymore, and you need to load the binary only pre-releases just like on a Windows box. I mean, seriously. And yeah, so this is that. And you see, this just fails here after a couple of things. Also, this is, first of all, why we can't really package it nicely in T2 is because you see this shit here is downloading some stuff, because it's downloading all those micro dependencies of this integrated cargo packaging managing nonsense. And this is also something I wouldn't want, because this means the downloads are out of the control of T2, and we check some of this stuff. So maybe I hope they check some of this too. But I would want this to be in the control of the T2 package managing stuff and go through our download and our packaging. And also when we this only works, so how I package this in T2, and you see this is full of problems from A to Z, from alpha to omega here. This is only full of problems, and I also don't understand. You see, probably every one of you in the audience, I hope, can probably, with all the difference we all might have, maybe agree that this is from 1 to 10, from alpha to omega, from everything from left to right, from top to bottom, on each step working against the open source ecosystem, against distributions, against Debian packager, Red Hat packager, T2 packager, because what is the problem? The problem is I can't package these micro dependencies really. I heard some people at SUSE or Debian or Gentoo have tried and managed a little bit, because ideally I don't want to have all these micro dependencies be compiled with Rust and Cargo, because what this means is that you compile Cargo or Firefox and you get dependencies built and get your Rust micro dependency stuff updated. So it can't, in my opinion, this is not how it should be, that you build Cargo and you get a couple of Rust runtime stuff updated. Also, I have never seen this stuff being cached. I've always, when I built this, even when I built the same yesterday, last night, I have rebuilt Rust because I changed something. I can show you this in a second. Each time I build this, it's rebuilding everything. I also don't understand what kind of hyper amazing, intelligent, super awesome package manager this is, that it's always rebuilding all these bloody dependencies. Certainly adding to the, also this adding to the build time, and also certainly this what did I wanted to say? Something I wanted to say. What comments to the audience? How do you get to the state when you need a feature called rename dependency? Surely that's so I think they probably, so with this rename dependency you can, in this bloody manifest files, can I think this was like you can rename this to other variable, like dependency JPEG equals lib JPEG something. I don't know for what they need this feature, but probably for just compatibility they have this as an option to enable on a per package base, or I don't know what stuff. Yeah, so what I probably wanted to say a second ago was that because it's always rebuilding all of this, it's also adding to the build time, right? Even I can show you, by the way, I just need to change here parallel build, oops, parallel build to 4, otherwise our Core i7 will struggle here with thermals. There is a, this is code, was it C code again? Oh, let me check. Package Rust, was it C bind again? So this is some small package, I guess for C language binding generator. I guess supposedly this shouldn't be very large, in my opinion. It's just some C binding generating stuff. And here you see compiling micro dependencies, right? And it's not like they compile like instantly. By the way, we might get drop frames due to increased CPU load and such. So it's not like this micro dependencies. You see each of them takes even, I don't know, temp file. I don't know why temp file needs 20 seconds to build, or I don't know what. Certainly this is not amazing. Intel CPU doesn't help to that. But you see, also, I had this installed. This was the last version from last night. I just rebuilt this for Firefox. I also don't understand quite really why it is recompiling all of them. I really don't. Either this packaging stuff is amazing, or it's recompiling all this stuff. Probably we cancel this here because otherwise we get too low of a encode output here. And yeah, so I'm not making this shit up. It's extremely uncomfortable. And you see that you see config interface and stuff. This in T2, because T2 is checking that a package installs files like open. If in T2 you would install OpenSSL and LibreSSL, they would partially install the same files. So T2 would of course detect this, a package manager, even our plain simple shell scripting stuff and file list comparison stuff. And T2 would say, hey, this is not right, the package clobbered and overwritten each other's files. And I have had to effectively disable this for this bloody Rust packages. There you see, everything fights there against each other, and they say it's the most amazing super top integration, when in reality it might be integrated for their cargo native use case, but not for a Linux distribution. And this might be somewhat usable on a binary only operating system like Windows or macOS, where probably this was more designed for. But why do we need, in the open source community, design something so that it works amazing in Windows or macOS, because they don't have a installer and package manager, and then it's such a clusterfuck on Linux and Unix systems. The way this is disabled now in T2 is we have some file list deletion stuff that is really crude. So we are just saying here with some regular expressions just to ignore, or actually not ignore, but actually delete this from the file list of packages, all the registry index, git shit here, and all the registry source, because the next thing is this package manager. So if you remote code execute this Rust up shit into your local bash to club or randomly, whatever comes there into your local system, you end up with all the cargo stuff in cargo in your home directory. So you will have a cargo directory that will be half a gigabyte in size, also amazing, right? Compiler and runtime half a gigabyte. That is certainly that kind of size that you would expect from a small modern compiler with a little bit of runtime micro dependencies. Amazing stuff. Until last night it was like this in T2, and you see it takes so many days and thinking and trial and error to actually integrate this bullshit here, at least in a way that works a little bit. And so just last night I finally changed this to set a variable, a cargo, I think cargo home, in of course capital $cargo home variable, to opt by default. You can change this in T2 of course, but by default this is no Rust. This is what you normally would have in .cargo, and as I said, so this is 515 megabyte for just a small tiny modern compiler, right, and some micro dependency package stuff. And what also I don't find a little bit strange is that most of this is, I guess, the source code here in sources. So this cargo stuff leaves all the sources unpacked there. I also don't find this amazing. It's not like imagine if our T2 source distribution packager stuff would leave all the all the sources in user source T2, like Firefox and stuff. You would have there tens of gigabyte or probably even more sources unpacked. I also don't quite understand why does this source need to lay around there. Maybe I can even delete this. I also don't understand why all the stuff is always rebuilding everything. I mean, maybe this is why it leaves the sources there. I don't understand. This is everything. So basically everything, how much I want to love this for the sake of memory safety, amazing modern language, each step, remote code execution, installation, the whole bootstrapping bullshit that you can't even usually build the Rust version with the next or previous then, or yesteryears or yestermonths version, then this stuff doesn't even really compile whatever is up with this cargo bullshit there. And then the installation, you see, in my opinion, you rather want this in opt-rust or wherever, or even use a local, not in your home directory .cargo stuff. And why did I have to change this? Obviously, even if I would integrate this, no, even more, because eventually I unfortunately need to waste my time and energy on this stuff that I don't somehow fall in love with. I need to, because Firefox requires this. So if I ever want to be able to ship a T2 CD with Firefox again ever in my life, I need to work on this and integrate this more, because right now, until last night, it was not integrated in a way. I can't build a CD where the Rust runtime for Firefox is installed in /root.cargo, obviously. I mean, I also don't understand why does it need to be in such a low-tech way, like exporting a environment variable. Why is it not cargo configure cargo home something prefix, whatever, opt Rust or cargo? And anyway, I don't really understand how nobody of my friends and family wants the compiler toolchain and hidden, even it's a hidden, like hidden .cargo directory. I don't know. Anyway, to finalize this here, so this is basically probably all of what you need to know on this kind of a situation here. And a little bit cold here anyway, my nose still. So yeah, I wrote here upgraded Rust, can't compile cargo, and yeah, didn't make the shit up. You saw this error message. And then yeah, some other people chime in here with a similar thing. Updated today before I started Firefox Nightly on Debian Buster. You have to use Rust up to install and update. It's a repo version of Rust is already out of date. There you see, even Debian people who always tell me use unsuccessful one-man distribution, everything piece of shit. Yeah, even the Debian person says you can't even use the Debian version of Rust C. And someone else says that seems rather boring because that is to the news good to see Rust settling down, but here, I mean, not really. Can't even bootstrap with the previous version and cargo doesn't build anyway. And someone else says just built version 134.2 yesterday for compiling Firefox 67, so I give this version a miss. The weekly release cadence is getting a bit ridiculous. So you see, I'm not only the only one who doesn't love it the most. Then of course, first comment start here, I found that much more straightforward to simply follow the instructions in BLFS to compile a new version of Rust in cargo from stable, blah blah blah. Sounds like a helpful comment, probably take a look. It's actually closer to be monthly. Yeah, but there you see, I had something like this from January 31 or something, but even this you couldn't use to compile the latest version. I really hate that I can't bootstrap cargo myself, Rust anyway, to start with. And then I wrote here, I don't understand why Firefox needs to use the latest version and greatest features of Rust. This is also valid criticism, right? Why can they not use Rust from the last 6 months or something? Why do I even need to upgrade cargo? By the way, fun fact, because I couldn't build cargo, Firefox required the latest version of, or nearly latest version of cargo, so the latest version of Firefox. By the way, the latest version of Firefox, this is the latest version of Firefox. It is not the most, it is not really faster. So why did I go through all this pain? Obviously I wanted a new and faster Firefox, just that it wasn't really faster. You see, my biggest criticism to Firefox is how long it loads modern websites. Like, although I made this in the IT news, I said this, it is still not loading faster. So I upgraded from 62 to 67 now, and you see how slow this loads. And yes, I said this in the IT news, maybe boycotted by Google by intentionally programming it so that it's slow in Firefox, but the Firefox people could also do their homework and support this outdated Shadow DOM API stuff to make their Firefox snappier, right? It's not really my problem that their Firefox isn't fast. So I went through all this pain. It's not even faster for the websites that are relevant to me. And yes, I switched on web renderer in the about config. You need to enable it on Linux or something. And so the fun fact is I even had to patch Firefox because you have seen I couldn't build cargo for whatever reasons. And because I obviously wanted to compile Firefox, I know, by the way, maybe I forgot to add this patch here. Actually, I forgot to add this. So much to developing Linux with a YouTube video. You see it had here in this Firefox build mods config Rust configure. It was checking here for Rust version 132, which was of course newer than the 131 I had. And I wonder actually if they need all these features. Maybe next time I try to just patch this. But what I patched here is that you see the cargo version. I showed you earlier in this live stream, the cargo tarball was 0.35 or something, but here they assign cargo min version to Rust C min version, which is here 132. There you see how out of sync the version number is. It is also really strange. And I just patched this here to version 123 because you see here in some not web, you see there's some if else something. This other was on Windows or not web, or right, this was some if crash report or something nonsense, no idea why it's there. Anyway, I copied here the 0.23 version, that's just some completely old bullshit. And to my surprise, I did not expect this to work. You see, sometimes after wasting 2 or 3 hours on this Rust and cargo bullshit, I just kind of give up and say, okay, fuck it, let's see, can we somehow work around this bloody shit? And funny anecdote enough, yes, this builds, so no idea why they raise the cargo version here to 132 when it builds with 130 or whatever I have here. So yeah, some hotfix patch to compile Firefox with this old cargo version worked for me. Also, and there you see, my cargo installation is not that broken. It even the old version even compiles Firefox, just not cargo itself. So yeah, amazing stuff. And yeah, so I wrote here, can they not wait 6 to 12 months? Feature milestone. Yeah, seriously, do they really need to use the latest and greatest features in Firefox? I don't understand this. This is really super. They basically, as if Firefox is not losing enough market share already, can they not make it comfortable for the last open source users they might have to entice them to work and support this? It's because they really try very hard to lose me as one of the maybe last loyal users. I have the feeling everyone already moved to Chromium or whatever. I have sometimes the feeling I'm the last Firefox user on Linux anyway. So yeah, someone replied, if you're one of those people, then I'm sorry to break it to you. You are too nervous for this and lack of patience, and I'm even worse, by the way. So yeah, thanks for your support and being with me on that. Firefox needs the latest and greatest Rust features because Flash news. That makes it easier to write Rust code, but its last few Rust releases were lighter on features than usual. Yeah, doesn't help much. Someone replies, thanks, that's why. For anyone not working on the compiler itself, using Rust up is the norm for the Rust community, since updating Rust in cargo and Rust up is a breeze to the development team, assumes that most recent stable compiler. Yeah, but again, even for GCC, it was never that GCC had to be built with pipe, build GCC into your bash. It was always configure, make install, and I would have no problem. I would love to spend here the CPU cycles on this Intel Core 7, AMD Ryzen and fun stuff like this, or the Octane to build Rust, just that this bloody fucking piece of garbage needs to compile and make it easy. And make it easy means configure, make install, and not piping there some website into your local shell for some amazing remote code execution. And can you really complain when you're insisting on going about these things the hard way for what amounts of two of the most complex categories of software out there? Yeah, this Luke Wolf, no idea who he is, but really wondering what's up with him, because first of all, for decades I had no problem compiling GCC. I have nearly no, well, actually I don't really have a problem compiling CLang and LLVM CLang or Clang. And so basically, I don't really have a problem. You could also say going the hardware compiling the Linux kernel, going the hardware compiling GCC. Yes, I've been there, I've done that for 2 decades. Not really much of a problem, but this stuff is really not nice. And when a veteran Linux distribution developer, which he probably did not know I am, already really loses his shit about this shit, then maybe it's maybe too shitty. And by the way, why? They should be happy that I try to support this stuff and not just say, okay, rm-rf, remove all this Firefox and Rust stuff and not support the stuff in T2. Maybe they should be happy that I try to support the stuff, but it's just not pretty. It isn't. And by the way, Firefox, we could on a gigahertz Athlon or even on a 700 megahertz PowerPC iBook in 2003, we could compile Mozilla. It wasn't at the day, it was probably, what was it, just Mozilla, or I don't know what it was. You could just compile this, and it was never a problem. You could always, well, Mozilla, okay, to be fair, Mozilla was always a little bit strange to build, but you could, and it was not such a big of a drama. If you want, well, our support glue in T2 is a little bit nah, because historically Firefox, Mozilla always was a little bit nah to build, but it worked. It wasn't pretty, it always had some export this variable here, run this custom script there, and do some fiddling of whatever at the end there, registering components and XP, RP, MPC, something, whatever, but it worked. I'm not complaining about this, well, except maybe since the last years they required the super old autoconf 2.13 or what totally outdated autoconf that was, but not even complaining about this. I even packaged this completely 2-decade-old, bloody old-fashioned shit of autoconf for Firefox that I have no idea and understanding why they would need that though. But this uncompilable Rust and cargo, and by the way, what are they saying? Just ignore that nobody can compile this piece of shit themselves except using a binary-only distribution and always compiling it from scratch and giving a shit that it doesn't fit into your distribution. Ash says, I want to call bullshit on you need the latest Rust-C rhetorics if the compiler features are still in development and Bleeding Edge say nowhere near ready for use in production software. Yeah, that is a good point. And again, I would, in my opinion, like some 6 months or always the last year, like call this 2018 release, take 12 months, like 1 year developing the next greatest features. It also takes 20 years to develop the latest and greatest features of C++. I'm not saying it needs to take 20 years, but at least, hey, 12 months, right? Doesn't sound so unreasonable. And 12 months, you probably should be able to survive on your... I mean, either this compiler is amazing or it's not. And if it's amazing, they certainly can get away with 1 year of using last year's release compiler features. Can't be that difficult, can it? And it's every 6 weeks, no need to guess. It's easy to decide whether building the current version makes sense. Yeah, but again, I would have no problem to compile it each month if it would bloody just compile and not be such a bitch. I'm probably quoting Louis Rossmann again. They didn't want to be a half bitch. They really wanted to be a full bitch working against your distributions packager. Yeah, they probably shouldn't watch Louis Rossmann too often. And look how many people Rust generated in this very look how many problems Rust generated in this very thread apart from awful code. Just get rid of it and do human a favor. The only problem with, I'm seeing is someone is too stupid to figure out Rust up update. Yeah, too stupid to figure out Rust up update. I quoted here quite some things. It's not Rust update. It is also that I would want to be able to compile this here in a reasonable fashion and not always bootstrap it each time from a binary only distribution. By the way, we have so many security problems. We have security vulnerabilities everywhere. When I go for Moscow for a week, I should really realize that they don't have sophisticated remote code execution there, man-in-the-middle certificate exploitation, and I get there the Russian FSB successor of KGB flavor of Rust. Thank you very much. And this is, if this would be in T2, I would have had my checksum. It would come from our server, and even if they man-in-the-middle hijack, I do not just execute this. It is first downloaded, and even if they injected some malformed KGB version or NSA version, at least my checksumming stuff will complain that this download is modified. And I really would wish I could have this in... I packaged it a little bit, but it's not yet pretty, right? It's not yet amazing. And I really like when stuff is amazingly integrated. And someone found in the audience, thanks for welcome in the audience. Thanks for finding the P3 video is quite interesting. Amazing to watch your work. Thanks for that. P3 is also here. And we need to continue with that. Yes, I know, but for... And also... Why am I so irritated with this Rust? I would love to build a new PowerPC flavor of Firefox, which by the way, I'm not really sure if they still support the just-in-time compiler. But maybe I need to go back a little bit in time there for PowerPC support, because not only do we have the PS3, but also the Cube, which is there slightly hidden behind this monitor, and the G5 here, and some other RS6000 server and such, although that might be a little bit slow. And with an hour-long compile time, imagine how long Rust compiles and Firefox. So on a Core i7 from yesteryear, or our AMD Ryzen nodes here, on the AMD, so on this aging Core i7 from yesteryear Core i7 Mac Mini goodness, this compiles Rust and Cargo for 1 hour, then Node.js and Firefox. So you are like on this Core i7, even after I reapplied thermal compounds there for slightly better thermal performance, this is compiling 2 hours, right? So all of this compiling on the AMD Ryzen on the mid-range this year will probably, as soon as AMD Ryzen 3000 series gets out, I probably upgrade this for even, well, for throwing all the CPU cycles on compiling Rust, right? Because can't recompile LLVM and all its micro dependencies often enough. But yeah, imagine how long if you want, and this is why ideally we want everything cross-compiling, which I see will be a huge pain. And also the problem with this packages like Firefox, they're so super complex with all those dependencies that it's a total nightmare to cross-compile. I really wonder if how many men, weeks, months or years I would need to invest into getting Firefox to cross-compile, because then we could on a AMD Ryzen cross-compile for the PS3 here, because that certainly would not probably take a day or two to compile natively on the PS3, but even on the G5 it's not so much faster, right? It's not like the dual core G5s there on below the desk is so much faster. Anyway, reading here more comments, and this is I also don't understand. Okay, it is compiling LLVM, which takes a huge time, which you have seen on my Musel C-Lang Musel only system videos. A little bit scratching throat here from. So if you go to Canada and Niagara Falls, be aware that you, especially in the beginning of summer, you might get a cold. Also probably air conditioning and airplanes and such. And yeah, once in a year you fly somewhere and then you come back with a cold and flu and whatnot. Anyway, yeah, then I wrote here, I don't know what it will mess up on my system. Aside half a gigabyte of build and artifacts hidden in tilde/.cargo and whatnot. You know what? Clever people invested, probably invented, damn it, distribution package management decades ago, so they work reliably. And again, yeah, so this problem was solved, right? Distribution packaging was solved, and then the cargo people came. And then I also wonder that the cargo people shouldn't wonder that the Linux people are not the most in love with this, probably because package management was solved. And then the cargo people came along for no good reason, and they say, yeah, it's amazing to develop. It's in your code in your Rust code you set their dependency libc and a2i and exception whatever and such, all the micro dependencies, also a small piece of garbage there. And in the C world, first of all, this was never a problem, right? Like libjpeg, was it ever a problem to interface with libjpeg? You include libjpeg-h and you link with -l, at least with GCC and such, you link with -l jpeg. Was it ever a problem? So the Rust people say there, it solves all the problem. Seriously, in 20 years, even before I was a student, when I was a hobbyist at home with 15 years old or something, I didn't have a problem to write my first C program linking to libjpeg. I mean, you can also really make a drama out of this. And besides, I also like, additionally, I like this, some people do this header-only libraries for C and C++, which I really like in the meantime. First, I found this a little bit silly, but actually for small things like even a JPEG decoder or stuff like this header-only libraries in C and C++ are actually also pretty cool, in my opinion, and pretty handy, right? You put your your dependencies somewhere and you just include your header-only SSL or JPEG and whatnot. And actually, so in my opinion, they tried to solve your problems that really wasn't really a problem, and they cause you more problems than they solve, because what have they really solved? We could compile C forever, we could compile C++ forever, even Go, Ruby, Python, Lua, and even Lua and such, or you will later see in a second, people also quoted the PHP and Perl. Yes, this was always a little bit alien with Perl, CPAN and such, but it was possible to package. So even Perl packages like XML stuff and such, we have packaged in stuff. Comments in the audience, do you think Rust is faster than C++? So it can be, but not necessarily. Also, what many people don't realize, I yesterday took also a look, there you see that I really looked into this. In the meantime, I spent probably in total more than 3 days, maybe in total over the last years, I probably maybe already spent a whole work week of work on this. You know, 1 day 2 years ago and then there a day, and so over the last years packaging and maintaining all of this, I invested more than a week's time of my stuff here, testing, in reading and stuff. And so Rust has probably better support for parallelism, for multi-threading, and certainly with memory safety and such. And again, I don't say Rust is a bad language. the syntax is a little bit alien to me, but I value that Rust is innovating in the memory safety and such, but all the surrounding stuff, and by the way, it mentions this, I mostly complain about bootstrapping and packaging and integration. And imagine if they would not have done it like this, if they would have done this like configure, make, install, normal libraries, it would be amazing. And in my opinion, it would be twice as good or 3 times as good, just because they really try really hard to fight open source Linux distributions is what makes this stuff so unusable. And coming to the faster part, usually this Rust stuff will probably often not be faster. So it could be sometimes, especially for multi-threaded code. But if you just run this, what they propose there, this Rust up and remote code execution, curl something install Rust up pipe shell, you end up with totally unoptimized binaries, because as far as I've seen, I think, because I investigated this last night, as far as I've seen, correct me if I'm wrong, this is not compiling optimized for your CPU, so only for generic. And people in the Rust user community stuff, they even wrote there, they intentionally do this so that people don't complain that they compile something and they run it on the other machine maybe, which by the way is a little bit invalid point, because as they make it so that everyone should compile it, then you always have compiled it on your machine anyway. But their point is, if you run it somewhere else, you might get a illegal instruction exception from your CPU, because if you imagine you compile it on your latest and greatest AMD Ryzen, it is optimized with AVX512 or whatsoever single instruction multiple data instructions, and you then run it on another system, which probably is unlikely in the self-compiled Rust case here, but whatever, then you run it on a yesteryear's Core i7 here, then you would get illegal instructions, and that is why they, like probably GCC or something, if you compile it so like they instruct there, you probably have unoptimized generic code, which I also need in T2 even set up next to, because Rust of course is not using the regular -O2 and dash CPU or M arch and such equals Core i7 and such, or Core i7 plus AVX or something. So you need, I think, dash capital C or something, optimize equals something. And so yes, the syntax even is different. I also understand why did they had to diverse from this? Why can Rust C not accept dash capital O for optimization and MCPU equals something? Of course, they always need to do everything differently. So yeah, chances are, unless you run maybe Gentoo, chances are your Rust code is highly unoptimized. And yeah, again, so this is what I will do next. Probably next I will also, as I just in this live stream, I just realized that this Rust stuff is compiling its own LLVM flavor. I will most likely try to modify this Rust bootstrap here in the T2 package to use the system LLVM, and then next also to use the T2 optimizations, because in T2 of course you choose whether to optimize for Core i7, for speed, for size and so on. So this is probably what I have to do next. And yeah, and so then next comments. On my system, Rust up is installed by the package manager in user bin. All the Rust commands are symlinks to Rust up. Rust up installs its binaries in home Rust up, which seriously what? But I thought it's cargo, which is also then quite a confusion. So some people get in .cargo, some in Rust up, like seriously what? And those have to add it to the path. Yeah, amazing stuff. There are like 10 symlinks, one binary, a few various shell completions, and the licenses all installed in the standard user bin. What do they mean, license and the licenses? Whatever. In all fairness, the gazillion files all over the systems outside of what the package included in standardized locations. Everything is centrally located in the home directory .rust up. Like, yeah, I mean, this is not really where I want to. I want my GCC in .gcc. And no, I don't want to start having all the packages installed in subfolders in my home directory, hidden even away. And then you wonder, by the way, you wonder why your SSD is full, and then you check your, after a year, you check your cargo directory and it's full with gigabytes of build artifacts with all the sources and stuff from yesteryear and so on. And what makes Cargo great is you don't have to fuck with build systems and systems made after the fact, which means that there won't be any major build system changeovers. Let's switch from configure make to Manson Ninja. And yeah, so they, by the way, so this is a classic example of there are 20 competing standards, all of them suck, so let's make our own, right? So what this basically means, as usual, the Rust fans say, hey, it's amazing, but what they're actually really saying are, there are 20 standards, let's make the 21st standard, right? And it's no surprise that people like myself and others there in this thread and so on are not falling totally in love with the 21st standard that is again differently. And do we really need 50 different build systems from CMake, Make, Configure, AutoConf, Ninja, Gem, and so on, you name it. The install Rust up via the package manager and then configure that to use some global directory for system-wide usage, install whatever version of Rust your distribution ships. And yeah, whatever version Rust your distribution ships, yeah, I'm trying, just like does usually not compile, right? I mean, I wish I could ship something more amazingly integrated, but they're not really making my life here very easy. And also, yeah, it's crap to install, so just use what your distribution has. Like, yeah, thank you very much. Not sure what other distributions, but on Arch Manjaro, you either set it with the custom, set it up custom via Rust up, Pacman or curl, curl, remote code execution, we called it already somewhere like opt Rust up, and add it to the path, set up normally with Rust up, install with Pacman or curl, roots, video, blah blah blah, components, root, home, cargo, bin, system path, yeah, thank you very much. On the curl bash part, just, yeah, and on the, by the way, and then the people even get me wrong, on the curl bash part, just shut the fuck up about the already insert package here not being installed by default, any noise, everyone, and multiple ways of, you know what, I think you didn't even get my point. My point is not that I don't have curl and bash installed, like insert pack, I think they mean, I guess, I shouldn't complain that I don't have Rust, curl or bash, but this wasn't my point. I think they didn't get my point. My point is not that I need curl and bash, which obviously I have. My point is that you inject remote code, remote shell code directly straight into your system. Is that so hard to understand? Oh my god, I had to run sudo apt-get install build essentials. No, it's not fucking build essentials. It's piping remote code into your shell. Why would someone want this? I don't get this. This is, I don't know what hipster snowflake installation procedure. I don't know, are the goods, I mean, the people really must have good drugs. This was always my running gag with my friends in our childhood. Our running gag was always, when something sucked in Windows, our running gag was always, it must be good drugs they hand out at Microsoft. This is really, seriously, it must be really good drugs they hand out to come up with remote code execution install stuff. I really don't get this, I really don't. And I said this on last week's IT news, I quoted this, is that other people saying, I'm really so thankful to other people also from Dragonfly BSD, maybe I should join the Dragonfly BSD efforts or something. They have some really clever and straight thinking people out there. And I'm really so thankful that people from Dragonfly BSD also called this out, this stupid remote code execution. This is hilarious. For those who didn't get this, it's at least in, I think, last or previous, but I think it was last IT news tonight. And yeah, build essentials, my ass. Before I could complete the Linux kernel, and that's some bullshit, yeah, but for the Linux kernel, you don't build the Linux kernel with curl /install or upgrade kernel to your bash. I mean, I can't anymore, really not. And yeah, this is also the year of the desktop Linux. Why don't we have the year of the desktop Linux? Because in 2019 we reinvent build systems and the 20s or 50s or 100s build systems. This is why, in my opinion, why we don't have the year of desktop Linux. Also, because Firefox is still not snappy. How can it be that in 2019 on a 500 Mbit connection, which by the way today we only have 150 drop frames, all my complaints to Vodafone probably had some fruits here, because after being 10 days away in Canada and such, I came back here with more amazing internet. And today before the live stream I tested it, we really got 500 Mbit down and 50 Mbit up, or 48 Mbit up. I hope it stays like this. Would be amazing if they would have really fixed to this. But you see how slow this loaded. On a 500 Mbit internet connection it takes 10 seconds to load your YouTube dashboard, and obviously in Chrome it's like 2.5 or 3 times faster. And yeah, maybe the Firefox people should concentrate on getting their browser up to speed, like on Chromium. Certainly, maybe that would be time better spent than inventing cargo packaging manager stuff. You didn't even understand, I write here, most of my points at all. Unfortunately, also shut the fuck about curl and bash. I have curl and bash installed. That is not my problem. My problem is people in this day and age promoting executing remote untrusted code without reviewing straight from the internet, blah blah blah, yada yada yada. Also hundreds of megabytes compiler and so on, micro packages, so you get the point. Welcome Detard, welcome everyone in the audience, by the way. Amazing stuff that we have so many people in the live stream. Totally enjoy this. Drop frames were when you were compiling cargo, now from network, not from network. I think when I was compiling C bind gen something, I had only low, by the way, I have quite, actually I'm streaming with 10 Mbit or something, I probably should check here. I think only the encode output went down. I think in that moment I didn't have drop frames. I think the drop frames, the few 150 drop frames today only came after that or something. At that moment only the encode. Yeah, I'm actually live streaming with 9.5 Mbit, which is actually relatively high. Yes. But again, maybe all people are voting here and not watching YouTube right now. So anyway, also by the way, voting in the EU, I've voted already. So if you don't want incompetent politicians in Brussels, you probably should go out and best convince your friends and family neighbor not to vote for idiots and Nazis and such out. We Germans had not amazing experience with Nazis a couple of decades ago, so can't recommend voting that. And yeah, you probably want to convince as many people, friends and family, to vote for more clever people there for managing, or not us in Brussels and Strasbourg. Their stream seems very good today. That is what's up today. Julian, today Rust was not up. And yeah, we are probably mostly over here with ranting about Rust bullshit. And yeah, then this Luke Wolfs, probably should Google him. Whoever this was, looks like some huge Rust evangelist. Rust, so I should please write, Rust is not a runtime language 100 times on a chalkboard, followed by Rust produces system binaries another 100 times. And there you see, you know, I have here some, in my opinion, valid points, and all they say is I should, like Bart Simpson, that the thumbnail of this video, probably have to gimp this now and write on the thumbnail of this video, Rust is not a runtime language, and Rust produces system binaries another 100 times. And what I really don't understand, why, this is also the last point of this video probably, why does everything be so bloated nowadays? Why is a new language like Rust so bloated, requires an hour? Okay, in 1 hour it also compiles LLVM, which I would not want it to do, but why does everything need to so large and bloated with 150 micro dependencies that you have seen in my logs? They compiled all over again. And why can a new language, a new modern language, why can it not be a reasonable size with and compile a super modern language? Can this not be in a way so that on a yesteryear's Core i7 it compiles in like 15 minutes and everything is snappy and amazing? And yeah, somehow apparently can't. You're literally just pissing and moaning. No, I'm not literally pissing and moaning. I have some valid concerns, and even after spending a full week over a couple of 2 years or something, I still could not package Rust and Cargo in a way that is nicely integrated in T2, or should probably check Gentoo, and something probably still not amazingly integrated there. And about distributing the compiler and build tools and blaming cargo. Yeah, it's a piece of shit, doesn't work for me, it doesn't even compile. If something, I've already, in the meantime, I know a little bit how to build it, and then, even then, it still doesn't just compile here. Excuse me, if something for a 2-decade Linux veteran can't get this stuff to build and it's failing with error, fail to pass manifest in feature renaming dependencies that I don't even understand where it's coming from, I added it all over the place and still not building after an hour later, then excuse me, this is not amazing stuff. And I outlined 10 other points, valid points, not pissing and moaning, no, this is just like latest MacBooks, just junk. And excuse me to say this, if this would be nicely buildable in Linux distributions with nicely packageable, integratable stuff, and again, I said in the very beginning, I said it probably 2 times, I have nothing against Rust. Rust as a language is not too bad. Rust as a language is pretty okay. It's just compiling it, bootstrapping it, and all the micro-dependency packages surrounding with cargo that are my biggest complaint. And again, if they would not reinvent the wheel all over the place again and again for the 50s build system, and this stuff would just compile, and I have even nothing against compiling with Python. I mean, I showed this also already here in Rust, something here. I mean, I find this a little bit hilarious, apparently, that this bootstrapping is with XPy. I mean, who calls that bootstrapping X? I find this already hilarious enough. The jokes are basically alright, right themselves. Not even joking about this very unprofessional naming scheme here, but whatever, I would call this bootstrap. Not even have something against running a Python script to bootstrap this, but then this bloody shit at least needs to bootstrap and not error out in cargo with, yeah, rename dependency is required. That I thought I have. I think my cargo is even new enough for rename dependency. I think this was added somewhere, I don't know, years, maybe 2 years ago. I think my cargo has rename dependency. I have zero idea why this error occurs. I have zero idea how to fix this bloody error. I added this suggested cargo features all over the place, didn't help a shit. But I'm just pissing and moaning about some bullshit that just doesn't integrate here nicely, and I should remote execute my S here. Yeah, amazing stuff. Handles most of the, yeah, handles all, actually, cargo actually makes things much easier for distributions because it handles most of the dependency problems. Yes, handles most of the dependency problems itself. My S. I see that. I'm not making this shit up. I tried all versions of this year, none of them built. And again, it doesn't make, even if this would just build, it doesn't make distributions easier because distributions want clear packages like Rust, libc, Rust. And by the way, seriously, Rust CRC32 fast, that is a package. Can they not have a base digest package with all of those CRCs? Does it really need to have some just CRC32 fast? And bytes, whatever, what is bytes doing? Dealing with bytes in a protocol buffer or something? I don't know, sounds amazing. We could actually, for a last look here, and then it's of course amazing that probably, maybe I should make a more open source and computer science running channel. Now that I have this here, and we could try to find this. Where is it even storing this? So this is in storing this in, and yeah, all this checksum GitHub cache, and yeah, you name it, you guessed it. And let's see, where would this be? Probably in this here. And you see what I said. So this, just last night I changed this. I said earlier, I called out that it is rebuilding these dependencies multiple times. I think this was not bytes. I think the other dependency was another one, I think, that was rebuilding twice. And so I just changed this. This is not from months accumulated build artifact. This is just from last night because I rm-rf removed all of my .cargo home directory because I switched T2 over to have the cargo home in /opt/rust, which in my opinion is at least somewhat reasonable where I would want this. What is there? So, and you see, so this is just from compiling Rust. Cargo didn't build, so starting to build cargo, which didn't build for me. And you see here how many, and you see here the date. This is 20, this is just, yeah, I'm not making this shit up, this is just from last night. And I'm not faking this. And you see, even with this, I have here all of the stuff I have here 2 or 3 times. I mean, seriously, I have this fucking piece of bullshit. I have here even 5 times. From just compiling Rust cargo, well, cargo didn't build, and cbindgen and Firefox. Maybe Firefox added some of this, I don't know. And there's the thing, you don't even know where this bloody piece of shit is even coming from. It might be you built something with Firefox and Firefox is adding here some piece of bullshit. And seriously, I just do this for Firefox and I have here everything of this piece of shit I have here 5 times? Seriously? And you want to tell me this is amazing? This is our future. I also don't quite understand why it needs to keep all this source build artifacts. But let's try to take a look. I've not taken a look in bytes here. Bytes sounds amazing. Let's see, what is it even doing? Also best when why is it not CD? What? Hello? Okay, so this makes sense. So where is the source here? So yeah, this is like bytes, debug, ether, libs and surder. So no idea. What did I do now? FEI. Oh, this was a directory. Wait a second. What is buff? So then it has, or it also has some buff for. Do they even have here? Do they have like a description what this piece of crap even is? Come on. A utility library for working with bytes. Yeah. Just that to use bytes, first add this to your cargo toml. Dependencies bytes. Yes, so I have here some UF and this is. I really. The problem is, I'm not even the greatest fan of this micro dependencies because you see, this is some small piece of garbage library for working with bytes, and really, there should be some Rust base runtime stuff, because even if this would more nicely integrate with package managers like Gentoo, Debian, apt, Red Hat, RPM or whatever, or T2, you would have 150 packages of this micro dependency stuff. And I don't, the Rust people say it's amazing, but is this really amazing? I have my doubts. This amount of byte libraries is amazing. It's, I don't know, it doesn't look amazing to me. I'm sorry, I just don't want 150 micro dependencies. It's, comments in the audience, I think by default cargo members the versions of the dependency you build it with, so if you don't update the version your package, you will still depend on the, yeah, you will still, yes, and this, you add this to the toml thing there, and then one library has bytes something, and the other library has bytes whatever, and then you have .11 and .12, and yeah, and there you see the people say, yeah, but nothing breaks. Yeah, first of all, nothing breaks, but everything links against another library, and then you have everything here. I'm not making this shit up. I rm-rf this here last night and started from scratch, and yet here even Unicode stuff, and then this stuff doesn't break my ass. I just need to open my cargo. This stuff doesn't break, it just builds because it references the working version. Yeah, and this is because cargo doesn't build for me. Amazing stuff we got ourselves into here. And yeah, handles most of the dependency problems, yeah, except when it doesn't, or it takes the compiled artifacts and shoves that into an appropriate set up package. Yeah, I see how that works with cargo. Yeah. Nothing, comments audience, Ash writes, nothing breaks when nothing builds. Yeah, and also nothing breaks except when it breaks. Or then here people, it's no different from using Python and PIP for running random untrusted code without review straight from the internet. Distribution unfriendliness was also PIP in Python, as if considered 2/3 of changeover of whatever. Python virtual env, yeah, so this Python virtual env is not amazing, but somehow we got it under control for the most part. But even this Python stuff, it worked to some degree, and well, yeah, sometimes I've seen stuff breaking, but then again, I'm not the greatest. But comparing this, but even with this Python, I can't even complain too much, because the handful of packages we have for something in T2, at least they usually build to some degree, and it usually builds in a somewhat controlled manner. And then they compare this to, yeah, but this Python stuff is also not amazing. So first of all, with the Python stuff, I can't complain too much, because it to some degree just works even in our unsuccessful one-man T2 distribution. And then you compare this to, yeah, but this other stuff is also shitty, right? But yeah, but this other stuff, you compare this to the other stuff, that's even working for me. And you say this other stuff is also shit, but yeah, this other shit at least works. Damn it. Oh, and GCC 8. For what it's worth, I have 4 Rust toolchains installed, 2 90s, a beta, 1 stable, and extra components, and it's 3.5 gigabyte and 80,000 files. Yeah, like, and what? Why? Even I don't have usually, you know, for me GCC and C-Lang usually work. I don't need a better nightly version of CCC and C-Lang. I also usually have other things to do than messing with 4 toolchains. And MinGV6 is 962.75 of binary data. No idea what measurement unit that is. Maybe megabytes, I don't know. Maybe they mean megabyte, I don't know. Unit is missing. Package size and 299. 7 megabyte of sources, megabyte something. So yeah, you compile this to, first of all, I'm not in MinGV something. And also, yeah, you compile this to a system that is a Windows runtime. So you compile, and by the way, even saying something else is huge means you can be huge and wasteful. Or, oh, and GCC 8 contains 848.6 megabyte of package data. I guess GCC is a piece of shit too. Well, to be fair, GCC includes a C, C++, Go, D, ADA, Fortran compiler, or whatever you name it. Usually often 2 multilib stuff for 32 and 64-bit nowadays. And yes, GCC is big. And by the way, it includes an STL and standard template library, plus some other library, support libraries here and there. And yeah, is GCC too big? Yes, a little bit. But hey, it comes with 5 or more languages. At one time, it even included Java. And so you compare yourself with something that is sophisticated over 2 decades or 3 decades, has 5 languages, and this is, in the meantime, I'm even like, should I even write in these forums? Why do I write in these forums? To spread awareness. But then you argue on this kind of level that is like, what have I started? I should have stick to my YouTube videos. I should have just continued my unsuccessful one-man distribution with PS3 and SJ Octane and just, yeah, I should open a beach coffee somewhere on a lonely island, and I have the feeling IT is not for me anymore. And by the way, veteran open source people get already depressive over this piece of shit. So far we have come in 2019, the year of Linux desktop, where veteran people already want to open a beach coffee because they can't see this bloody mess anymore. I don't get it, why we need to make everything so messy. If you don't want to install their software in their way on your distribution, yeah, my distribution's way. On your distribution's way, yes, I want to install it in my distribution's way, just it's not possible. I wish I could. I really wish I tried a week already over the last 2 years. Shut up about it, yeah. Maybe you should have realized that I run a distribution and I can't get this shit packaged. If your distribution doesn't have it because it's new and haven't figured out how to want to support it, yeah, it's not so new, but over 2 years I still haven't figured out how to package this bloody clusterfuck of a spaghetti microcode mess. Thank you. You're welcome. You know what? You can come here, if you know everything better, I invite you to a beer and pizza and you can package this shit. And by the way, if you don't come to Berlin, save the traveling cost. I even send 2 beers and 2 pizzas over to you to package this bloody fucking bullshit in a way that it actually works. You're welcome. And prove me wrong. I want to see. Please send patches. Patches welcome. patch is always the best. And I will donate 2 beers and 2 pitchers of pizzas if you send amazing packages to improve this, because it's so easy, right? And want to support it? Yeah, I want to support it, just they don't make my life very easy. At least Rust provides you with a solution that's supported by Rust and can be used system-wide manner. Yeah, system-wide manner, but not by default, and only if you export cargo home to equals to opt Rust is something, and even then cargo doesn't compile because it's some spaghetti code dependency on. Fun fact, comment in the audience, I created a new empty project with cargo new and added something dependencies. Guess what? It pulled 236 dependencies, including HTTP and OpenSSL stuff. How the hell does this relate to yeah, thanks for probably supporting my case. I think the issue is that it becomes a debate about religion rather than software. And in my opinion, this is not about religion. This has nothing to do with religion. I just want this stuff works, and this is also it's not a debate about religion, it's a debate about software architecture. And is this, if this is what you say is true, that ran something, fun fact, he just created an empty project with cargo new and added FFTW as a dependency. Guess what? It pulled 230. So there you see, this is just underlining my point. I was speaking about 150. The last time I counted this 150 micro dependencies, and he is saying an empty package with just FFTW dependency pulled in 236 dependencies. Seriously? And if I would wanted to package this in T2, then I would have had, if for the normal way of a distribution, we would have to had 236 dependencies to mirror those in T2 to be able to build them all the T2 way and not the cargo way. And yeah, so in my opinion, this is about system design and architecture, and this is just this kind of micro dependency hell is getting out of hell. And the question is, this is not a religious question. This is a question of, can you actually integrate this into a Linux distribution? And this is not a matter of T2 versus Arch versus Debian versus Red Hat versus Ubuntu versus SUSE versus any of the other 1000 distributions. This is just plain distribution unfriendly, and you just can't package it nicely, as you see and demonstrated. And if you would want to package it nicely, you would need to package all of those micro dependencies to have it built and installed your distribution's way, which they have like no provisioning for. And as you see, I've shown here live, don't make this shit up, and other people confirmed here, you would even need to patch all the packages not to build their custom version, because if you would have packaged, by the way, you compile this on Linux and you get Windows APIs or what, or whatever that is. But even then, if we would mirror this and integrate this more nicely with all these micro dependencies, we would need to patch all the packages, because if we would have a package like Toml or Tokyo or Unicode something, then we would need to modify all those packages, because if we would not modify these packages for our system-wide Unicode version, then we would install something like C bind again or something, and it would install its hundreds of micro dependencies in their custom version anyway, which is hilarious. Detard writes, my bad lol, and Detard, with the state of things there now, it makes sense to have statically linked archive package build law OS X flatpad in even containers. The wasteful, and that's said but true, just his 2 cents. Yeah, fun fact, I think this Rust stuff mostly links statical, or at least not, I think the Rust stuff usually doesn't link to the C library, or mostly not, or something. So basically they are generating all their own operating system API stuff themselves without a system libc like Musel or glibc or something. So basically they have reinvented the whole system library, system C library stuff without a good reason. And probably, to summarize this happens when there are 20 standards, 20 not good competing standards, and you make the 21st one, and you reinvent the wheel also for the build system stuff. Then this is what is happening. This uncontrolled clusterfuck of a spaghetti code ecosystem. And yeah, instead of 20 not amazing standards, we have now 21 amazing standards, just like the wrong focused terminal. And XCB, what was it? XKCB standard something. Let's see, will DuckDuckGo find us something. And maybe this one. Let's see if this is a situation. There are 14 competing standards. And can we also make this larger? So yeah, this probably sums up our discussion here in situation. Rust, before Rust, there were 14 or 100 languages. Situation, how standards proliferate. Situations, there are 14 competing standards. 14 ridiculous, right? We need to develop one universal standard that covers everything. Use case, yeah, soon there are 15 competing standards. So yeah, oops, that was my microphone cable. Amazing stuff. There you have it. Let's call out here the last comments. Python is even worse than Rust. In my opinion, not. Python is better, but then we are competing like this is worse than that and what is worse than whatsoever. In my opinion, not. But anyway, yeah, but doesn't make Rust good just because you compare it to something truly awful. Yeah, thanks for that comment, dude. I'm repeating myself, just really think you will enjoy having a look at Haiku. And yeah, but the problem with Haiku is even then we have Rust potentially. If we would have, well, Haiku as it probably nice. I tried it already, will try it more. Just can't do it all of this every day. The last days I was busy developing a PDF standard and Twain scanning standard, and now I got a cold. And yeah, Haiku certainly is amazing, but it doesn't help a thing if Rust comes to Haiku and maybe they transition more stuff to Rust, and then you have all this Rust stuff on Haiku as well. And also in any case, if you want to package Firefox for Haiku, then you still have to deal with all the Rust bullshit. And yeah, that's probably that for this video. It's already too long than it should be, but probably all has been said. And yeah, thanks for your comments. Some underlining and just proving what I said in even more detail. Leave me in the comments below what you think about the situation. Do you think this is amazing? And again, I have not said that Rust as a language sucks, just Rust and Cargo, or mostly Cargo as an ecosystem sucks. And then they have an own they have an own WebKit port that will ship with it is tiny, no Rust. Yeah, but the problem is if this trend continues and in a couple of years we have only Chromium and Firefox is quit development because nobody is using Firefox anymore, everyone is using Google's Chrome, and then they have their whatever, or even the Chromium people rewrite everything in Rust or whatsoever. But yeah, in any case, even if you have your tiny browser, maybe then stuff doesn't work so amazingly, and Google is promoting their latest and greatest web technology, and you end up compiling the latest and greatest for Rust, for Haiku, then you may end up dealing with all the same dependency nonsense, and then it is entirely the same situation. And I'm not shaming this. I'm not like Louis Rossmann, like, hey, this is some complete spaghetti piece of bullshit. Like, yes, unfortunately it is, but I'm doing this to spread awareness, and I'm fully aware that the people of Rust and Cargo will continue the next decade, promote and evangelize this is amazing stuff, when maybe it isn't. And I just try to educate here the next generation of maybe think about this more, think this through. If you have 10 micro dependencies, maybe when they started this they had 10 micro dependencies and they thought this is amazing stuff, but now they have 350, what was the call out there? 375, 57, or 236. And counting. And before you start a new standard, maybe think it through. Was it really necessary? Do we really need this micro dependencies for bytes, for UTF-8, for each and every single thing, you name it, and everything versioned in this kind of, yeah, everything and their kitchen sink 2 and 3, if not 5 or 7 times. And with that, probably I have said everything. Thank you so much for tuning in, many people in the live stream, much appreciated. And again, I would really like to sit here and say, hey, there's a new Rust language, it's amazing, the ecosystem is amazing, but I'm sorry, it it doesn't even build for me. So I called out here 20 things, and yeah, and at the end it doesn't even build. That probably says it all. And don't forget to share, like, and subscribe, and I hope to see you soon for all the next more amazing videos to come.